Assalamu alaikum, this is Sojla Sahar from Mashriq.Tv. Today the first story is about Israel-Greece ink massive $1.68 billion defense deal. The governments of Israel and Greece are on the way to a massive defense deal after the Israeli Defense Ministry won a tender to build a training base for the Greek Air Force to be executed by Israel's Elbit Systems Limited. The Greek government confirmed Tuesday. Elbit will also operate the base to be known as the Flight Training Center for a period of 20 years and deliver training aircraft fleets equipped with its avionics and embedded training solutions. Elbit will also supply the base with its flight simulators and training aids as well as ongoing logistical support. The Greek Air Force will also acquire 10 Italian M346 training aircraft, which the Israeli Air Force also uses to train cadet pilots. The deal is worth a reported $1.68 billion and is contingent upon the successful completion of negotiation with the Hellenic Ministry of National Defense. Our next story is about the scope of forced labor in Xinjiang is bigger than we knew. China has constructed a vast string of factories inside the walls of Xinjiang mass internment camps. The Chinese authorities are forcing thousands of Muslim minorities to work in cotton fields, according to two recent investigations. Xinjiang products are deeply integrated into lucrative supply chains around the world. The Chinese Communist Party's official embrace of coerced labor will force Western governments and institutions to choose between pleasing business leaders or enforcing universal human values. In the past 3 years, the Chinese government has forced hundreds of thousands of Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang to perform seasonal labor in the region's cotton fields, according to a December investigation from the BBC. Our next story is about US has dual policy on Afghan peace process. MPs. Some Meshrano Jirga or Senate members on Tuesday accused the United States of adopting a dual policy on the Afghan peace process and hoped the second round of peace negotiations would produce fruitful outcome. This comes as the government's negotiating team landed in Doha today to resume talks with Taliban representatives after a 3-week break. The team was expected to travel to Qatar, but their trip was delayed due to technical issues. Kamil Beg Hussaini, a Meshrano Jirga member about the government's negotiating team's trip to Doha said, "We hope this round of talks would be different from the previous one, and the team will have its achievements for the Afghan people." Our next story is about Pakistan condemns India's refusal to hand over bodies of martyred Kashmiri youth. Pakistan strongly condemned the latest extrajudicial killings by the Indian occupation forces of 3 Kashmiri youth in Srinagar on December 29th and its refusal to hand over bodies to their families. The Foreign Office said the families and neighbors of the martyred Kashmiris Ejaz Makbul Ghani, Zubair Ahmad Lone and Athar Mushtaq Wani, age 16 and student of class 11th, had affirmed that the young boys were innocent, who visited Srinagar on the fateful day and became victims of Indian state terrorism. It is doubly inhuman that the bodies of the 3 martyrs are not handed over to their families for a proper burial, despite repeated appeals by the families, the Foreign Office said in a statement. The Foreign Office said this was a new form of oppression that the Indian occupation forces were now resorting to in order to break the will of the Kashmiri people and emphasized that they would never succeed in this attempt. Our next story is about Nuclear deal can only be kept alive if all participants deliver on their obligations, says EU to Iran. The EU on Monday called on Iran to avoid any steps that could undermine the preservation of the nuclear deal. In a news briefing, EU spokesman Peter Stano said, "The deal will be kept alive as long as all the participants deliver on their obligations," adding all participants of the deal wants to keep it alive. Late last week, Iran confirmed a plan to increase uranium enrichment up to 20% as it moves to implement a recently introduced law as a countermeasure against US sanctions. If this announcement is going to be implemented, the announcement by the Iranian authorities, it would constitute a considerable departure from Iran's nuclear commitments under the JCPOA with serious non-nuclear non-proliferation implications, said Stano. Our next story is about US imposed sanctions on 17 companies over alleged Iranian ties. Michael R. Pompeo, Secretary of State, has remarked that the United States is imposing sanctions on 17 companies and one individual in connection with Iran's metals industry. Secretary of State repeated that the Iranian regime uses revenue from its metals sector to fund the regime's destabilizing activities around the world. This is it for now. Thank you for watching Mashriq.Tv. If you have any queries, you can email us at info@Mashriq.Tv.